And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
Welcome to the wildest ride in football, folks. You are tuned into RBLR Bucks, the podcast where we talk all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a little bit of a southern twist tonight. I'm your host, Musab, and I got to tell you, we've got one hell of a show lined up for you today. Grab your hat, sit back, and let's get rowdy as we talk about our beloved Buccaneers. All right, well, let's just get into it. Dominant performance against the LA Chargers. Oh, you bet your boots it was. I mean, we're talking a 27-0 domination in the second half. The defense was on fire, and the offense, don't even get me started. That's the kind of game that makes you think, oh, my Lord, maybe the Bucs can beat anyone. I mean, we're rolling, all right? Now, awards to everyone out there. You know who you are. I mean, it was just one of those games where you just sit back and think, damn, man, this Bucs team is looking mad different, especially after the bye week. But before we get all buck rowdy on our podcast saddles, we got to talk business. We got a huge game coming up, Bucs versus the Cowboys, and it's Sunday Night Lights, baby. And listen up, it's 8 p.m. There's only one game and only one game on. So while we appreciate you tuning in, make sure you tell your friends, your family, your neighbor, your boss, hell, even that random guy stalking you on Facebook. There's no place you should be during the holiday season than to be sitting on your sofa with the TV dialed into the Buccaneers versus Cowboys. You gonna want to watch another game? That's cute because there's only one game on and it's ours. It's going to be a fun one. And we'll tell you in a bit, but first, I want to introduce the dynamic duo that's going to take you through this wild ride of a podcast. Let's first of all introduce the man who's never met a football stat he didn't like. He's got the kind of knowledge that's sharper than a Cowboys Spurs. This guy's been watching the Buccaneers football for so long, he can predict plays like a fortune teller in a saloon. He is my co-host, Mr. Zach Blaine.
What's up, man? How are you doing tonight, brother?
So far, so good. I mean, I feel like let's just get right into it. I mean, we were not expecting a win, first of all, and then
Not
second
even
of
a little
all, it
bit.
was such a crazy win. So I was ecstatic. Honestly, I was just, as I say, sunshine and rainbows. That's what I was in the second half.
Yeah. No, it was shocking. Not to put a pun on a lightning bolt or anything, but I would not have expected a blowout win, let alone a win in general. It was nice to see.
Yeah. I guess you could say our Buccaneers were looking all charged up in the second half. But before I keep going on with these crappy puns, I want to introduce the man to my left. He's got more energy than a bucking bronco and more heart than a longhorn. This guy's takes hotter than a skillet on an open fire, and he's always ready to ride with the Buccaneers through thick and thin. He is our second co-host and the one and only Mr. Carter Brantley. The mic is yours, my friend.
I appreciate it, Mr. Tariq. Yeah, I mean, shoot, y'all have been so just hyping it up. I mean, it's hard to really go anywhere but down from here. But you know, it's such a great win. There's still more room to talk some Bucs football and talk about how exciting that win was. It was really just a fantastic game to watch, especially like you said in that second half. They were indeed charged up, and it ended up in that 40-17 win. I mean, my goodness, 23 points. Like, you don't see that margin of victory really anywhere in football, especially between two competitive teams. So it was a really impressive game for the Bucs. And in my mind, I mean, just to kind of get the ball rolling here, it was the best performance of the season. And that's crazy to say because the Bucs have beat the Eagles. They've beaten the Lions. Like, they've had some pretty marquee wins. So in my mind, though, it was the best performance of the season because of the timing of it. You know, they needed this win. I mean, they didn't desperately need it, but man, it just makes things a lot easier going into the last 3 games of the season. So, Mr. Blaine, I'll start with you, man. What were your thoughts on this game? Did you think it was the best performance of the year in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about it last week. If Baker could get away with throwing minimal or having minimal turnovers, then we had a solid chance. And not only did he only throw one interception, but he threw for, I believe, the most touchdowns he's thrown for all year in a game.
Sure.
At least ties it. I think that's the most. He was 4 for 4 and 1. So it just all around offensively was probably the best game we've played all year.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, just there's really not a player that you can point to on that offense that had a bad game.
Yeah.
Like if you can point to the offensive line, they looked great against Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, two really elite pass rushers. Their wide receivers were excellent. Baker Mayfield, excellent. Rashad White and Bucky Irving especially, really really great. So just across the board, like you said, offensively, it was a fantastic performance. And the defense, I mean, hey, only 17 points to the Chargers, and they all came in the first half. One of them came off of that Baker Mayfield interception, which kind of set the Chargers up, unfortunately, to score. But yeah, they were outstanding. They forced an interception on Justin Herbert, which not very many teams have been able to say that they've been able to do that this season.
One throw away from a tying Brady for like top 4. Well, I mean, Brady's on it twice, but
right.
Top 4 in the league for most consecutive passes without an interception.
Yeah, just outstanding. I mean,
Wild.
it was, yeah, really, really ridiculous stuff. But Mr. Tariq, I know you kind of gave us that ridiculously fun intro. So, but what were your thoughts? Do you think this was the best performance of the season up to this point?
I think so, for sure. I mean, that Lions win and that Eagles win were really nice, but I mean, this was just, I mean, as I said before, just pure domination. I mean, every single one of those guys on the field was looking real good. From our offensive line only allowing 1 sack to, our running backs. I mean, hell, I thought Bucky Irving was, going to be kind of banged up and they were going to be a little bit conservative,
Right.
but I mean, the guy took off. And then
Mm-hmm.
Baker Mayfield just looked, I think, he looked different. I feel like, once things started kind of clicking, I feel like he got a little bit more relaxed. And on top of that, I mean, you got Mike Evans now, back with you. Mike Evans was playing like, the Mike Evans we know, the GOAT Mike Evans. So, and then, I mean, defense, I mean, we just, we locked them up, I want to give a shout out also to Levante David. I feel like he kind of, I feel like he played a kind of crucial part in kind of, changing the pace of the game, or at least, towards the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, surprise, surprise. The one of the Bucks' best defensive players ever was a huge impact. I mean, that's just nothing new for Levante David. So.
This season, it's kind of a surprise, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm still going to give the guy his due. He's done a lot.
He's
Really.
a legend in Tampa. It forever will be.
For sure. So I want to give him his due and give him a little. He's up there in age. This isn't. He's not 25 anymore. I don't want to be too harsh on him, but I do feel you. It hasn't always been pretty for him or the rest of the defense for sure. But they pitched that shutout in the second half. Does this give y'all hope at all that maybe things are turning around? Like Dean and Zion are both healthy in the corners, and David seems to be figuring it out on as the linebacker spot. Hopefully they can get a little bit of a better performance from whoever his running mate out there is at the linebacker spot. Because they did all this without Antoine Winfield Jr., who I know we've mentioned before has not had a great year either. But it's still really impressive without one of your leaders to submit this kind of performance. So, Mr. Tariq, does this give you hope moving forward that the Bucs can turn things around defensively?
I think so. I mean, yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, yeah, the guys we didn't have, it was obviously unfortunate. And, before the game, I was thinking, oh, man, this defense could be in trouble if, Herbert and McConkey and everyone else starts cooking. But they were able to hold it down. And I feel like, I mean, it's kind of just picking up on things. And it was just a whole kind of team effort on the defense, just working everything out, playing smart, I guess. Just all around, it was just great football. I really don't know what to say other than that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just really, really solid job. Because, like you said, I know the Chargers offense isn't their strong suit. They were mostly known because, best scoring defense in the NFL and all that, and rightfully so. But their offense has Justin Herbert. Like that alone isn't enough to kind of keep you awake at night if you're if you're Todd Bowles or any member of that defense. But Ladd McConkey, like you said, he's been having a great rookie season. One of the best rookie receivers so far this season, other than maybe Brian Thomas. But he's been really good. And Quentin Johnson, I know he's been torn to pieces, and I get it. His drops are ugly, but when he does catch the ball, my goodness, it's a lot of fun. He can really do some crazy stuff out there. So, they're seeming to put something really serious together over there in LA. And hey, the Bucs managed to kind of hold that at bay for a game. But Mr. Blaine, you're kind of the half glass, half empty guy of the three of us. So are you still still kind of holding your horses when it comes to this defense, or did it give you a little bit of confidence?
I'm still holding my horses.
Fair enough.
I don't mean that in like a negative way. We've seen more often than not the defense be the problem this season specifically. So we've seen a lot of 4-game stretches where the defense will be really bad, one game where they'll be really good, and then they'll play like Carolina and let Carolina look like a good team. So it's one of those things where it's just I'm not sold yet. And I don't think you're going to be able to sell me for the last 3 games of the season because we play dumpster fire teams the rest of the way. So I think if we get into the playoffs, when we get into the playoffs, and we have a solid defensive performance against a good team, fully healthy good team, because again, Justin Herbert was also injured, and you could tell he didn't look normal. But once we get into the playoffs and play a solid team, then I'll be more sold.
Fair enough. But if they play, if they play well against a solid team in the playoffs, then they'll win a playoff game. That's kind of a no doubt in my mind. They're like you said, they're the big question mark. The offense is going to show up. They can keep up with anyone. But I thought this game was a very nice step forward. And maybe I know they're playing some crappy teams to end the year, but you can only play who you're scheduled to play. It's not college football. You're not going to schedule a tough opponent just for the sake of strength of schedule or anything. So I don't know. I have faith that if they continue to play like this, maybe they can sort of ride some momentum into the postseason and maybe capitalize on some of that momentum. So we're talking about the playoffs, and in the middle of the year, I don't think there was a lot of confidence that the Bucs could turn this into a playoff season. So my goodness, this has been really kind of a fun stretch for the Bucs, and they've been playing out of their minds. So what is y'all's confidence level that the Bucs are going to end up doing this thing? They're going to win the division again, 1 to 10. What's your confidence level of the Bucs winning out, maybe, and winning the division? Mr. Blaine, I'll throw it right back at you, my man. Are you on low end of the scale? How are you feeling about them winning the division?
I'm a 9.
Wow, a 9. Oh
I want to say 10, but we have not seen Michael Penix play.
Wow.
So here's my thing. You know what? I'm gonna say 10 because I think we win out. I don't think there's a chance. Could a team upset us? Yes. I don't think that's unthinkable. Carolina scares me. They've kind of had a little bit of a turnaround. They're still not a great team, but they've had kind of a little bit of a turnaround. And Canales, last time they played us, seemed to know exactly what to do against us. So I'm a little bit worried about Carolina, not like they're definitely going to beat us kind of way, but like it could be an upset. But I do think we win out, and that leaves Atlanta with no hope.
Yeah, if they win out, they get the 3 seed. Yeah, if they win out, they get the 3 seed. They don't just win the division; they get the 3 seed. So
exactly. So I think we win out, and I think we get a top seed, not one, but one of the top 3 seeds for sure. And then at that point, I'm not totally sure there's a team that can completely beat us. Like, I'm not scared of any team at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. They've beaten the other 2 best teams in the NFC. Obviously, different times of the season, but it's certainly a reason for optimism. It's it can't be a negative. So yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, that we'll talk about the Michael Penix stuff a little bit more in depth in the second half of the episode. But yeah, it just happened today. It was announced today. He was getting that starting role in Atlanta, and Kirk was headed to the bench. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the second half. But yeah, if the Bucs went out, my goodness, they're set up really well. Mr. Treek, how about you, man? What are your thoughts on 1 to 10 confidence level of the Bucs winning the division?
I was gonna also actually go 10, but as Zach was talking, I'm starting to fall down to 9 only because you never know what happens with these last few games. Guys, honestly, I feel like sometimes when we play these very odd or crappy teams, I feel like sometimes we stoop down to their level. You know what I'm saying? Lions, Eagles, Chargers, we put up the good fight. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying every single good team we played, we did well against them. I mean, for example, the Ravens, but I'm going to go 9 just because, I can't imagine why we don't. I mean, especially with what we've been doing, but anything can happen. But it should be definitely. It's going to be a close fight, but honestly, I am also kind of banking or hoping that the Commanders take down the Falcons and kind of give us that little bit more of a comfortable lead is what I'm thinking. So yeah, take me
Yeah,
down
I
as a
mean,
9. Yeah. What
wow.
about you though?
I think I'm gonna go 7. I hate to be the
Oh,
pessimist of the group. Um, I don't know. It's just the Panthers, like Zach said, have been playing pretty well. It's a divisional game. Things can get weird. And we'll talk about this Cowboys game in the second half of the episode. But the Saints also a divisional matchup. Luckily, it's at home, so hopefully the Bucks, it's no problem there. And see, there's Hazel. She's sad thinking about the Bucks
that's
potentially not winning
funny
the
'cause you
division.
said 7. That's why.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I'm not a super big, definite kind of guy. I'm not big on, oh, this is definitely going to happen. So I guess I'm a little, just not counting the eggs and before they hatch or whatever. So I'm going to come in at a 7, but I could easily shoot up to it. If they win this Sunday, I'm at a 10. Like it's almost a given, to be quite honest. So yeah, if they win this weekend, which they very well should, and we'll get into that, then it'll be up to a 10, and we'll address that next week if and when it happens. But before we get to our second half of the episode, there's a little something that we got to do: player the games, because the Bucks had such an amazing game that got to shout out the individual performances. So we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Like we said at the beginning of the episode, you could really have your choice of anyone. Mike, Baker, Bucky, Jalen McMillan had a touchdown. So I'm going to go with Mike just because, I mean, my goodness, over 150 yards, a pair of touchdowns. Hard to beat that, but if you want to go Baker or Bucky, that's totally fine too. Did y'all have anyone different for this pick or anyone that y'all wanted to shout out? Mr. Treek, I'll start with you, man. Offensive player of the game, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna say the only thing that I'm gonna have to give Mike Evans a little bit more credit is because he kind of saved Baker from that interception. I just feel like
Yeah,
that's
that's a
just
good
something
point.
that, like, these these seasoned veterans are able to kind of pick up on and all that. So you don't think about it until afterwards or something. But I just thought that that was kind of a really nice thing to see as well. Although he couldn't get it, he was still able to stop the interception from happening.
Yeah. I mean, my goodness, he turned into a cornerback. Like that's what they always say when wide receivers break up those interceptions. And it's kind of one of those like inflection points. Like if that's a pick, who knows how the rest of the game turns out? Maybe Baker's not as confident moving forward. The offense isn't able to get in rhythm. Because then Baker will have thrown 2 interceptions again. It's tough, but it's tough. So yeah, I don't know. Mike's a great inclusion for this award. I'd probably pick him too, but yeah, I mean, like we said, Baker and Bucky have just had such great games as Mr. Blaine had to take care of the kiddos as as any good father does. So it's just me and Mr. Treat for the rest of the episode. But yeah, I mean, my goodness, Mike Evans had quite a game. So the other side of the ball, the defensive side, who's your defensive player of the game? Because I had Jamel Dean, he had that interception, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Mr. Treat.
I mean, you got to go with Dean just because the interception. But as I mentioned earlier with Levante David, I feel like the game just kind of changed around a little bit when Levante David had gotten Herbert. Oh man, I'm blanking out right now if it was even a sack or not. But he kind of banged up the ankle, kind of shook him a little bit, and I feel like from there on out it was kind of a little bit of a different game. And hell, on top of that, I mean Carter, this linebacker room has been a very what do you call like those typical kind of corporate 9 to 5 high turnover rate, people get fired after a month or two, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
he's been there, and I feel like, yeah, if not Dean, I would have given it to him.
Yeah, absolutely. David's a worthy inclusion for all the reasons you just said, and we talked about it earlier in the episode. And I love the shout out of that I think it was a sack, I believe so, of
Hmm.
Justin Herbert because like you said, the ankle was an issue for Herbert. Obviously, hate to see that, but you got to take advantage of any weaknesses that you can exploit. And he wasn't as mobile for the rest. I mean, he wasn't really mobile at the beginning of the game either, but from that point forward, you could definitely tell he was uneasy out there, just really uncertain of where to go and what to do. So that was a really important play for sure as well. But if you're looking for the Levante David of where of clothes, if you're looking for a little that, see, Mr. Therese got the shirt.
There you go.
Definitely head to shop.rblrsports.com. You can find all those selections, all those USA shirts, as well as anything Tampa Bay sports related. And since the Bucks won this weekend, we'll give you a promo code Cannons, CANNONS, and you type that in, get 10% off your entire order. I know Mr. Tariq's hammering that code in when he orders these shirts, and they're fire. They make for a great Christmas present. The holidays are coming around, so they can be a great present for any of your loved ones or for yourself. So definitely head on over there and check it out. We'd greatly appreciate it. But now the Bucks take on the Cowboys this weekend, so it's it's going to be an interesting game. But before we get too deep into that, there was some other big news in the NFC South. We kind of alluded to it earlier in the episode. Kirk Cousins, he is benched. A very expensive backup quarterback is what Kirk Cousins has become. Michael Penix Jr. steps in. He's a Tampa guy, so that should be a lot of fun. But what are your thoughts on this benching? I mean, do you think that Atlanta made the right move? What do you think Atlanta looks like moving forward? Just give me something on this Kirk benching.
I feel like, you don't pick Penix, in the first round, for no reason. I feel like this was bound to happen. When it comes to the kind of money part of it, it can always be a disaster. I mean, look at Daniel Jones, for example, as well, and the Giants. So I don't even know what to call it. I feel like it was kind of just kind of a dumb move just by the Falcons organization. I feel like they're kind of just in shambles right now. But I mean, at this point, yeah, you kind of just have to let go of the heavyweight, if that's even what they say. But it's time to say, it's time to just throw in, Penix. You got him for a reason. It's time for him to just pick up on whatever he can. I mean, there's only a few games left as well, but I'm sure this also wasn't an easy decision, but I guess it was bound to happen. I mean, Kirk Cousins hasn't proved anything, these last couple games for him to, really be that starter. And at the end of the day, I mean, you got to kind of just take the financial hit, but it's more of also another business decision when it comes to, your fans and the other players as well. Who knows, what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to things like, chemistry between Kirk Cousins and the rest of the guys and all that. But yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me a little bit happy as a Buccaneers fan to know that, an NFC South rival is going through some kind of issues like that. But that's all I got to say. What about you, though? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it in the offseason, just how weird and how silly that move was of signing Kirk Cousins, like, okay, fine, like in a vacuum, that's fine. And drafting Michael Penix in a vacuum is also fine. But you put those two things together, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If they would have done one or the other, perfect. A-okay, totally get it. But just from an allocation of resources standpoint, like spending the first round pick and spending that much cap space on the quarterback position doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's, biting them in the butt, as kind of people expected, because it's the Falcons, A, and B, it was just as kind of a silly move to begin with. But yeah, I get it. Like you said, they're in a playoff race. They're potentially looking towards the future as well. So why not see what you got in Penix? Because Cousins has looked rough. They had a rough game against the Raiders Monday night. They sneaked out a victory 15-9, but man, it was ugly. Kirk is he's unfortunately not what he once was. He's not in the prime of his career anymore. He's nearing the end, and father time, it comes for all of us, and it's kind of come for him. He made a bunch of money though, so he's doing just fine. So yeah, I don't know. It was kind of something that you could see, like you said, you don't spend a first round pick on a guy just to sit him all year. So yeah, it was kind of a weird thing. Like, it felt like Kirk was always looking over his shoulder throughout the season. Just kind of everyone was anticipating when this was going to happen, and it finally did. So yeah, it's been a long time coming, but we'll see how it works out for the Falcons. Maybe it blows up in their face too. So that would be a lot of fun. Like you said, division rival having a tough time, a lot of fun to talk about. But another thing that's fun to talk about is the Cowboys week, because, everyone loves the Cowboys. They're America's team, all that nonsense. But it has not been a great season for them. They have looked rough. One of the worst teams in football. Obviously, Dak Prescott going down did not help. They're bottom 3 in EPA per pass and rush and just total EPA per play on offense. They're second to last in success rate. They're also 29th in EPA per play allowed, worst in EPA per rush allowed. So look for Bucky Irving to have a great game. Look for Rashad White to have a great game. Just bottom 3 grade in run defense on PFF. But they're pretty good in the pass rush, unsurprisingly, because of Micah Parsons. But they're also really bad in coverage, and they're going to be even worse because Trayvon Diggs is not going to play this weekend. So it's looking rough for the Cowboys, and Cooper Rush is their quarterback. So that kind of explains a lot of their offensive struggles, a lot of their, bottom of the barrel rankings in most major categories. But what are your thoughts on Cooper Rush? Are you kind of surprised they didn't maybe trot out Trey Lance? I know that they traded a 4th round pick for him. What are your overall thoughts on Rush and him under the quarterback position?
I haven't really, put too much thought into, Cooper Rush. I mean, for me, I kind of just feel like he's kind of just more of like a fill-in guy. You just kind of just, throw in, okay, whatever, you're the
Right.
backup now, show us what you got, kind of just closing your eyes and hoping for the best and all that.
Mhm.
And I mean, sure, he's, at best maybe mediocre or something, but I think his current record is, I think he stands at 3-3 so far this season. So I
Yeah.
guess he's okay, but I mean, the thing is also, it's not just Cooper Rush. I
For
mean,
sure.
Cooper Rush is not giving up points.
Right.
It's the
No,
Cowboys.
absolutely.
It's the Cowboys defense. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just how it is. I feel like, and they do have guys who are banged up. I mean, hell, they even got Zach Martin, for example, who's on IR,
Yeah,
and I'm sure they're missing him big time as well. So,
for sure.
unfortunately, yeah, they're just in a really bad spot. I think I've seen it a couple of times. I think they've only won 1 game at home this season. I think they're like 1-8.
Oof.
Yeah, and that win was against the Giants.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's just an ugly situation right now for the Cowboys.
Yeah, real ugly. And the defense, my goodness, it's just been really, really bad. And you look at their roster, and I guess it's just weird. They drafted a lot of coverage linebackers, and they don't really have anyone that's kind of big and a big run stopper, a Levante David type of guy to really anchor that run defense. So it's tough, it's tough. And Micah Parsons, as much as he's one of the best pass rushers in football, like just ridiculous, but he really struggles against the run. He's got a 66.3 grade against the run on the defensive side of the ball. So it's really tough. They don't really have that masher on the defensive line, and they also have a bunch of linebackers that are more well suited in coverage. So it's kind of a nasty combination, and contributes to why they're arguably one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. But with all that being said, trap games, upsets, all those kind of verbiages, they happen all the time. The Bucks could easily go to Dallas, kind of come out flat and lose this game. Do you think that this could potentially be a trap game for the Bucks?
I'll tell you this. Yeah, you can call it a trap game, but the way I kind of think about it, Carter, is out of the teams left on our schedule, the only team that's going to beat the Buccaneers are the Buccaneers. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely.
really if they just shoot themselves in the foot. So,
Mhm.
can this be a trap game? Sure, but I mean, it's just I would hate for it to be a trap game. There's always a possibility, in my opinion, as with the Buccaneers and as a Buccaneers fan. Any game could be a trap game.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a good point for the NFL in general. Like with a
Yeah.
competitive league like this, like there aren't any, Charlotte Hornets, there's no Colorado Rockies or anything like that. I mean, you could say the New York Giants and all that stuff, but for the most part, most teams are going to be very competitive. It's not going to just be a cakewalk. Not all sunshine and rainbows, as you would say, Musa. But yeah, so this could very easily be a trap game, but only if the Bucks beat themselves. I love that. That's the only team that the Bucks can really lose to is themselves. Absolutely. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But the good news is every game kind of from here on out is a playoff game. Like every game has playoff implications. So you know that the Bucks are aware of that. Todd Bowles and this entire coaching staff is aware of that. So coming out flat would be pretty surprising because they're playing for the playoffs. Like these are playoff games basically. So yeah, it's tough to come out flat in that scenario, but hey, you never know. So looking at the Cowboys, we've kind of talked a lot of trash about them, but they have 2 elite players, like 2 of the best at their positions in CeeDee Lamb and Minka Parsons. We've already talked about Parsons and his struggles against the run, but he's just insane as a pass rusher. Top 10 in total pressures, second in pressure rate. And he can really line up anywhere. That's what's so scary about him. He can line up right end, left end, over the middle. He can even be a linebacker sometimes because he's just that scary. So as much as people like to give him crap for the podcasting stuff, and yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah, Minka's a monster. And CeeDee Lamb's also really, really good, especially against zone. I mean, he's a top 25 receiver against the zone, has 375 yards against zone coverage, but also fourth in targets per routes run against that type of coverage. Surprise, surprise, Dallas throws him a lot because he's really good. So looking at those two players, who scares you the most if you're the Bucks? CeeDee Lamb or Minka Parsons?
I'm going CeeDee Lamb. I feel like we'll be able to contain Micah Parsons. I think we did a phenomenal job against the Chargers and the guys that they have, for example. But with CeeDee Lamb, I mean, just kind of learning more about him and all that. He's kind of, I guess, a versatile wide receiver. He does play in the slot and then also on the outside. So
Yeah.
my only thing is, a couple of our corners are going to get a little bit of that CeeDee Lamb experience. So that's
Right.
my only kind of thing is, how is that going to work out? Because I'm thinking, well, if he's in the slot, Kentucky Smith, pick up on that, and will he be able to lock him down? Because I have to say, our offensive line has been doing pretty darn good job.
Absolutely.
And I know, pinpointing it just on more like Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gadecki, I think they've only allowed 1 sack, and I think that was Gadecki. And on top of that, from what I've read, around Michael Parsons is more, he plays a little bit more on the left side as well. So we've done a phenomenal job so far. We only allowed 1 sack. We allowed 1 sack last game, and that was a weird one by Troy Dye. But so for that reason, I am very confident with our offensive line and what they've done, not with just protecting Baker and anyone else, but also creating holes. So I feel like we'll be able to take advantage of that. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be interesting for sure because the way I'm thinking about this now from the top of my head is I'm kind of getting Raiders vibes. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of just like, it's all eyes are on Brock Bowers, and then all eyes are
Right.
on CeeDee Lamb now, and then same thing with the defensive side. So with Max Crosby and Michael Parsons. So hopefully it kind of turns out to be a game like that. Hopefully
That would
more
be wonderful.
dominant, of course, because I know we had
Mhm.
a couple of weird episodes during that Raiders game. But
Yeah.
to summarize it all, yeah, CeeDee Lamb is my guy that I'm worried about.
Yeah, I'd go with CD as well. Like you mentioned, the offensive line is held up pretty well. So yeah, I have faith that they can hold up against Parsons. They're one of the best groups in football when it comes to blocking in the pass. Just pass blocking. They're one of the best groups in football. They get graded out that way. So it's really fantastic to watch that group evolve. And I have faith, like you said, that they'll be able to hold up against Parsons. But Lamb, yeah, Lamb could tear them apart. Lamb could have a big day. But fortunately, other than CeeDee Lamb, it gets kind of thin. After CeeDee Lamb, it's a bit thin, and they don't really, they got Cooper Rush throwing them the ball. They also, like you mentioned, Zach Martin's out, so their offensive line isn't as good as it has been in the past. You think of Tyrone Smith and that kind of group. And they also don't really have like Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott are their running backs. Just not a lot going on the offensive side of the ball for the Cowboys. So, other than Lamb and Parsons, there are some favorable matchups for the Bucks, and I wanted to get your thoughts on who those were, what you're looking at, maybe some X factor type of things for this game.
Yeah, my favorite one is probably going to have to be our running backs versus the Cowboys' run defense.
Yeah,
Specifically, I want to, give a little bit more favoritism in that running back room towards Mr. Bucky Irving. I mean,
Mhm.
this guy, looking up the stats, this guy is, leading the NFL like a 36%, missed tackle rate. He ranks like up there, with gaining yards, after a missed tackle. And our offensive line has been giving them opportunities for sure. So I'm expecting, our run game to be, super dominant. Bucky and Rashad both. I mean, because Rashad's got his own, weapons he brings to the table as well. So it's just nice to know we have two kind of different weapons that we'll be able to take advantage of and kind of toy around with their defense because as you mentioned it already, Carter. Their run defense isn't anything special, and hell, I feel like Micah Parsons is not. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's known for his kind of run defense. That's just
No.
more just of his attack.
Mhm.
On the quarterback. So that's probably my biggest favorable matchup. If anything, Mike Evans and the DB room over there with the Cowboys. I mean, it's just knowing Mike. I think he'll be able to cook something up. But I'm gonna have to say I'm really looking forward to our run game, though.
Yeah, absolutely. The run game, big shout out on the metrics as well. He's second in yards after contact per
Oh
rush.
wow.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous stuff. And the guy that's first is Tank Bigsby, and he hasn't really run nearly, well, not nearly, but they're about 20 carries apart. So yeah, Bucky's just been ridiculous. He's ahead of Derrick Henry. He's ahead of Saquon Barkley in that category, which is which is kind of shocking for a guy of his stature. But yeah, he's been outstanding. And like you said, Micah Parsons, their best defender. He's not a man. He's not known for his run defense for sure. The 66.3 overall grade against the run on PFF really tells you all you need to know. So yeah, I love the Mike Evans shout out as well. I'm also looking for Levante David and Vita Vea to really lock up this Cowboys run game because starting the season the Bucs struggled a little bit against the run. It wasn't looking pretty, but they've sort of picked things back up as of recently, and that's sort of what we're used to watching the Bucs because they've been an elite rush defense for years now. The Ndamukong Suh days, and then he mentors Vita Vea. Now Vita Vea is sort of mentoring Kalijah Cansey, so hopefully that's kind of the passing of the torch continues with this Bucs rush defense. And against Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle, like they're fine, but with that offensive line and their lack of explosive capabilities, I think that the Bucs should have a good time just closing down the running lanes and really making the Cowboys have to earn it in the run game. So that's another favorable matchup for me for the Bucs. But we're nearing the end of our episode. We've got a couple of segments before we go. We've got an over under because can't have an episode without that, right? So I've got some nice over under marks for us with the Bucs. I'm going to go with Bucky Irving rushing yards. I'm going to go 80 rushing yards. Do you think Bucky goes over or under that mark?
Ooh, I am. Oh man, because I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if hell even Sean Tucker gets a couple reps if we really start running them over.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm gonna have to still lean on the over though. I'm gonna lean
Yeah.
on the over. I think Bucky's still gonna be able to rack up 80 yards. I feel like that's not too much for him. And I feel like, I mean, if it even becomes a dominant game, and if we do start, throwing Sean Tucker and start giving Rashad White more of Bucky's reps, by that time I think Bucky's already gonna be above 80. So and give me the over on that.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I like the over as well. I think Bucky's just going to have another Bucky Irving game. It's just going to be really fun to watch. The only thing that would prevent this would be injury, and knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. So if he stays healthy, I think he just tears through this Cowboys defense, and Graham Barton and Cody Malk and the entire offensive line is just mauling while Bucky Irving's just zipping all over the place and making people miss. So yeah, I'm going to go over as well. My next one is going to be kind of a fun one because Mike Evans had that huge game this past weekend, and obviously the 1,000 yards receiving is on everyone's minds, and so he has to hit. I don't remember the exact number, but it's around 90 yards. So I think the exact number might be 86.5 or something like that. I don't know, but basically over under 90 yards for Mike Evans. Do you think that the real question is? Do you think that he manages to stay on pace to break the 1,000 yard mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like now it's all in now it's all on Baker to make this happen, and I can't imagine why he can't. So um I think it's not something that we're gonna prioritize, of course, but
Of course.
there's no excuse as to not, be looking for Mike Evans and, giving him plenty of opportunities. Plus, I mean, yeah, it's the Cowboys, so I feel like it's worth the risk to, really, look out for him out there.
Yeah,
So give me the
absolutely.
over.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. I'm not sure that he's able to maintain it every game, but I do think he hits it this game. I think he hits that mark. And the good news is the more he goes over it, the more that mark shrinks. moving forward. So like if he has another huge game, then I think that mark, I can't remember the exact mathematics or anything, but so I think that he'll have a pretty nice game this weekend. The Cowboys they're banged up defensively. They don't look too good. They don't have great corners, and Micah Parsons a great pass rusher, but man, that defense looks rough. So yeah, I'm going to go over as well for Mike Evans, and it'll be interesting to monitor that storyline moving forward. But before we go, we'll end the episode with our predictions, who we think is going to win and by how much. Street, give it to me, who you got winning and what the final score is.
All right. I got the Bucs winning, of course. I got them winning 34-20. I just feel like, overall it should be a pretty, solid, dominant performance by the Buccaneers. I just feel like naturally things happen or whatever. I mean, they do have the capability to score points, especially with CeeDee Lamb. And hell, I wouldn't be surprised if Rico Dowdle, has a couple of good runs as well, because he is capable of that. But minus them two, yeah, I mean, it kind of, gets real thin. But to summarize it, yeah, I guess they might, they'll get points. But I think the Bucs should have a nice, comfortable lead throughout the whole game, and they should definitely get the W.
Yeah, that sounds nice. A nice, relaxing Sunday night. Nice way to cap off the NFL Sunday with just watching an easy Bucs victory. That would be lovely. Unfortunately, I don't think that it's easy. I think they win. Like I have the Bucs winning as well, but I think it's a little closer. I do think that the Cowboys managed to, they're going to hype themselves up. It's Sunday Night Football. They're playing at home. They're playing against a team that's fighting for the playoffs. They're trying to be spoilers. So I think the Bucs win 21-17. I think it gets a little close, and I think it's kind of close throughout the whole game. But hopefully the Bucs will be able to take care of business, and I have confidence that they will. But it's the NFL, they can't blow teams out like they did the Chargers and the Giants every game. But I could totally be wrong. They could go out and drop another 40 piece, and we're on this episode next week talking about how great the Bucs look again, which would be awesome. That'd be outstanding. So, but either way, we'll be back here next week, whether it's a Bucs victory, blowout, or close, or even if it's a loss. It's not the end of the world. They kind of banked themselves a loss with that Chargers victory. So let's cooler heads prevail. That type of thing. Either way, we'll see you next week. And if you liked what you heard, if you want to keep up with us, definitely give us a follow at RBLR Bucks or at RBLR Sports. You can also like or subscribe wherever you're listening. We'd really appreciate it. It's a way to help support the pod. But for Mr. Tariq and myself, we really appreciate y'all for tuning in. And as always, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.